You were made to do this. That's what Miss Ginger Young had to say when I asked her, what's the one thing that you wish more women knew and trusted when it comes to pregnancy and birth and bringing babies into this world? You were made to do this. I couldn't agree more. Divinely created and perfectly made to do this. Ginger is a doula and a midwife in Wichita, Kansas. She was beside me in my last pregnancy with Miss Magnolia and Phoenix. And I'm so grateful for today's conversation around returning to and trusting our instincts, around the importance, the huge impact that making choices during pregnancy and labor and delivery have for the mother, for the child, and for our future. I am grateful that she paid reverence to and brought attention to the sacred space that doulas and midwives and OBs and practitioners like myself who support expecting mothers and brand new babies need to hold. A reverence for what it is to grow life and how beautifully and perfectly women are made to do this. So I hope you enjoy this episode of If They Knew, even half as much as I did, because I truly believe it's conversations like this that will empower women. And when we empower women, we change the world. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Devin. I have a very special guest today, a woman who has been a leading light in my life and a magician and game changer for my family and my babies. I would like to welcome to the show Miss Ginger Young.
Thank you.
This is where the crowd goes wild, because if you know her, you know why I'm so excited. If you don't know her, you're about to really get excited for the information that gets brought to the table today. Now, for the people out there, let's tell them who you are, where you're at in the world, and what it is you do.
Yeah, I am Ginger Young. I'm a certified professional midwife, and I serve women in Wichita, Kansas, and the surrounding areas, sometimes a couple hours surrounding areas. Mm-hmm. I love to empower women when it comes to birth and the amazing ability that their body has to bring forth life. I love that.
Empowered women. Now, imagine a world filled with empowered women. I'm a girl power fan. Now, how'd you get into what called at your heart to jump into this profession?
I have to tell you that was something that has been in my heart since I was just a child. I loved babies. I loved pregnancy. I always had a pillow under my shirt pretending to be pregnant. When I became an adult, I was the friend that went with my friends to have their babies. They would call me, back a long time ago, they would call me and say, will you come with me to the hospital? And so I was that friend. And I had all of my babies in the hospital, even though I'd asked my doctor if he would come to my house. I said, I like you, not really crazy about that whole hospital thing. Could you just come to my house? He's like, oh, Ginger, that's ridiculous. We don't do that. After my last baby was born, my girlfriend called me in the night. I was supposed to go with her. And I said, hey, are we ready to go to the hospital? And she's like, well, actually, I had the baby. And I'm like, well, why didn't you call? And she's like, well, I went to the hospital. They sent me home. I sat down on the bed, and the baby started coming.
Oh, my goodness.
She had the baby unassisted. Mm-hmm. So shortly after, she met a woman who had used a midwife here in Wichita. Mm-hmm. So I remember that phone call she called. She's like, Ginger, you are not going to believe it. There is a midwife in Wichita. And so she proceeded to have 3 more babies, I think. Mm-hmm. And I was with her when she had those babies with a midwife. And that midwife looked at me and said, Ginger, you should be a midwife. And I said, you're right. I should be a midwife. But at the time, I was a single mom raising 5 kids, and it seemed like a task that I just couldn't bite off on at that point. So fast forward many years, and my kids graduated and moved out of the house, and I remarried and lost my job. And my husband said, hey, you don't have to work. You can do whatever you want. And I pursued midwifery.
And in the loss came what your whole life, it sounds like,
Absolutely.
had called you into.
Absolutely.
What's your favorite thing about getting to be Yeah, right.
You know, life is so, birth is so magical. I can't tell you how every single birth, I just take a breath in. I'm like, I cannot believe this beautiful child came out of this strong mother. And it's just a moment of joy, you know, where the world just stops and joy is right there. And I love just holding women's hand and just telling them, you can do this. You are strong. You are so much stronger than you think. And throughout their whole pregnancy, empowering them in those ways, you know, helping them to understand nutrition and educating them on self-awareness. Teaching them to reflect back on their instincts, those things that God gave you from the get-go. And not, you know, we've been taught from day one to ignore our instincts and listen to what somebody else says. And I said, you know what? You do what your body says. You listen to your instincts, because even though you're going to birth this child, they're yours forever. And if you can't draw on your instinct and what's within you, you're going to be so lost raising this child. So start in your pregnancy, listen to your body, and do what it says.
Guys, you can see, like, I'm sitting next to her. There's like this halo of light that starts coming off of her. And I think that's true of anyone that's living their essence and living their truth and living their purpose. And you can see this, how she shifted and can feel that energy coming off. And you know, so if we look at that, and the premise of the show is if they knew. So if more people knew, A, that midwifery was an option, right? B, but that a woman could feel empowered, not, you know,
afraid. That
it's a medical process that needs intervention, because we have these gorgeous instincts. So what do you wish more people knew in that, and how do we get that message out there?
Well, first of all, you were made to do this. That's what I wish that they knew. You were made to do this. We don't have to go back to what Hollywood wants birth to look like, because it isn't what birth looks like. And you don't have to, it's not a medical procedure. Nobody needs to extract that baby from your body. Your body knows exactly what to do to bring forth that life. And after that life is brought forth, it knows how to nourish that life, right? You've given everything that you need to produce this child and to raise this child. So I really just think that women need to take a look and say, you know, can I? Not will you let me?
Did you hear that? Not say that again.
Can I?
Can I?
Not will you let me?
Not will you let me? Yeah. How does that change the game? I mean, like, if I get goosebumps when you say that. How do you think that changes the culture that we live in?
Right. So I feel like we ask for permission a lot. We want to follow the rules, and I'm not saying don't be that much of a rebel.
Right.
But know what rules are there, because, you know, this is the way we should be, and we're not just being negligent. But take ownership of your body.
There we go.
Take ownership of your child. Take ownership of your family. Just, you know, more than anything, this is your body that you have to live with, you know, forever. So take care of that. And I think so many young women don't understand, and I could go down a real rabbit hole with this, but even from years before they conceive, the drugs and the things that they're put on to, you know, put their body in this nice little cycle that because some textbook said, hey, you should ovulate here, and, you know, this is how your body should work. And then we get into, you know, labor or pregnancy, and we feel like somebody needs to tell us how our body should react, and every body is different.
That's right.
So it's a process of learning to listen and to wait and to be patient and literally enjoy the journey. To enjoy. I mean, it's uncomfortable. No kidding, it's uncomfortable. You're growing a human in there.
Right.
Your body's stretching and the joints are. You know all about that, right?
We're growing two humans, as some luck may have it, right?
Yeah. Like to do.
Yeah. And
And
but bodies. But we're. I mean,
we're born with the intelligence inside of us to do that. I mean, we didn't, you have how many kids, did you say?
I have 5 children.
5 children. I have 5 children. Did you ever at any point while growing them have to say, okay, body, today we're going to grow fingernails? Or, hey, let's work on the feet today. There is this magical universal intelligence, call it God, call it spirit, call it whatever, that did that. We have fallen, I believe, out of touch with that magic and that miracle.
Right.
And I think it's part of why both of us are called in different ways to serve expecting mothers.
Right.
And through labor and postpartum. Postpartum, I'm going to have to bring you back for a whole nother show on that, because I do believe the postpartum woman might be the most underserved
Absolutely.
population in our
Absolutely.
culture. Yeah. Now, if we look at today, and we've got a generation of children that are sicker than ever. We have the sickest generation of children in our history. How would, looking at our birthing process, our prenatal process, how would that help create healthier children?
Sure. That's a huge question. So, classic medical model, right there in pregnancy, as this baby is growing, as this little tiny fetus is growing, we're injecting neurotoxins into mom's body that have to have an impact.
Right.
Neurologically on the
Yeah.
baby.
I mean,
Right.
we're talking food, we're talking chemical stress of medications, we're
Everything.
talking potential vaccinations that are pushed now during pregnancy. So chemical stress is a real thing.
Right. Right.
Emotional stress is a real thing. And then
we're not taught how to eat well.
right.
We have no idea how to nourish
Diet
our
is a
body.
right.
We
Mom's
like
not getting what she needs.
Right.
Baby,
We like to be prescribed supplements that are just synthetic, manufactured supplements.
Right.
So, learning that food is the best medicine that we can have.
Let thy food be thy med. I mean, it is cliche, but it's
Truth.
those truths that do not go away probably are truths that we need to pay attention to. And if it, simple principle that we like to live by is it alive? It will give you life. If it's chemical or dead or never had life to begin with, it's going to siphon.
Absolutely. And so then after that, the mental part of it, understanding when you have a confidence and a faith in the process, that growing child recognizes that they absorb that energy that you have. And when you're in fear and pushing off your thoughts onto somebody else, the baby does that too.
Yeah.
So it's a communication. I think birth is a communication between mom and baby, and you work together. It's that first working together.
It's a reverence for what's happening.
Right.
That there is life growing inside your body. When I look at my firstborn, I was a young mom. I felt scolded, I guess, when I went to my OB appointments. And just, look good, all right, see ya. And it's like, I'm lost, I'm scared, I don't know what's coming, I feel like I'm failing at every corner. Now, if you go towards when I was pregnant with Magnolia and Phoenix, I had just lost my mom. I was in a very stressful time, and Ginger was there for me every step and going, how are you? Like, how are you the human? How are you, because your frame supports these 2 frames growing inside of you. And I don't, and you held that space for me and talked about the importance of nourishing my emotional needs because it impacted that health. And I'm not saying no OBs do it, right? This isn't, I hope that our culture begins to grow into, I love OBs actually in that last birth. I do believe every baby's born how they're supposed to. And so it's not no OBs, it's not no C-sections if they aren't medically necessary, but it's less is more, right? How can we return to the home and give more women the option if they wanted to be there? So talk me through, you work with OBs in town.
Absolutely.
And that's...
Right. And I feel like, if you're going to support women in birth and you're going to support a natural birth, you also have to support women's ability to make the best choice for themselves.
Right.
And, some people, they don't want to have a birth at home, and that's okay. They should still be honored and respected in a hospital setting or in a birth care setting. And I'm happy to do that. That's their choice. If somebody wants to have an epidural, if that's what they want to do, I'm going to support
instincts,
them.
right? I mean, we go, but you can't honor it if it only when it looks like what you think
Exactly.
it should.
Right.
Because then we have shame.
For sure.
What do you think shame is doing to women in our culture?
It's so, it destroys. That's all it does is destroy.
I mean, I can think of 10 women off the top of my head that just in the last few weeks are, what should I do? You know, or I did it wrong.
Right.
And then you live with these scars of what you didn't do versus I grew these humans and
Regret. I mean, very much regret. And I have to say, one of the things that I did not prepare for when I got into the birth world was how that was going to affect my emotional state from my own birth. I would have, if anybody had asked me, how did you have your baby? Oh, I had my babies natural. And once I got into midwifery, I mean, really got into, I realized I did not have my babies naturally. I mean, I didn't have an epidural. So if you call that natural, that was what I had. But looking back at how other people were making choices for me, when I would say, hey, I would like this, and they're like, no, you're going to do this, I realized that wasn't natural. That wasn't a trust that my body was capable of producing a baby. Wasn't capable. And I want women to understand that they are capable. They're very capable. It's not a frantic moment. It's a joyful moment. It's a tough moment. It shows a woman how strong they are. I often jokingly say in those, last little bits of transition in labor, I'm like, you remember this because this is what's going to give you the courage to discipline this child when they're a teenager and looking you in the face and being naughty. You're going to remember what you went through to bring them into this world. And, it makes it personal.
Yeah.
You understand, I mean, yes, back to cliches, the no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
But you have ownership when you have pain in something. When you've got skin in the game, you have ownership of that. And when you go through a natural birth, you know that baby's yours. It's not like you were just, asleep.
bystander.
Yes.
Right.
Somebody presented a baby to you and you're like, oh, okay, now what do I do?
Oh, gosh, no.
No. You worked hard for that baby.
Yeah, and that moment and listening. I feel like we live in a culture that when we feel pain, we try to numb it, or we feel pain, we run away from it. When in this is you listen into the pain, and that is the connection between. And that moment with Magnolia, hands down, favorite moment of my lifetime, of being able to be in that moment with her, and then the euphoria that comes on the other side of, and I think that most women lean into the epidural because they're afraid of pain.
Right.
Yeah, and afraid of, and I would say like the pain, the part that I thought was going to hurt the worst,
Didn't hurt the
the
worst.
endorphins take over, the oxytocin takes over, the brain takes over, and again, we were wired for it. We were wired for it. And so if because we could talk about this all day, and I had, like I said before I even hit record, we're going to have to do this again and in layers. But if we talk if we stay focused in this birth, and we've gone down into options and empowerment and no shame, not shaming, and really showing up for women. If you speak out to the mama bears out there, the ones that have had baby, just all of what message do you think women need to hear right now the most?
Yeah, you can't live in regret. We all make choices based on the amount of knowledge that we have at that time. And I don't think anybody purposely makes a bad choice in their lives. And we set out to say, you know what, I'm just going to do something that's probably going to just be horrible for me for the rest of my life. I just don't think we do that. But sometimes we're not educated enough, and we haven't looked outside of our box enough to realize that there's another option. And, there is another option.
Yes.
And you are strong, women. You are strong. You are courageous, and you're capable. You're so very capable, and you deserve to be honored. I look at birth as such a sacred time, and I think one of the things I regret the most about the births of my own children was how nobody looked at that. It was just a job for so many people, and they didn't look at that as a sacred space. And you're bringing an eternal life in when you have a baby. I mean, that's it's an eternal thing, and it is sacred. It's a sacred space, and I feel like sometimes that we step into people's sacred space. And I don't want to say we abuse that space, but we certainly don't
violate.
Violate. That's the right word.
Yeah.
We violate that space.
And this is, some of you felt that as we're talking about it. Some of this is new conversation. We understand. I would say because we've known each other now. I've been in Wichita for 10 years. So, we've known each other now on a spectrum. It's growing. This conversation is expanding, not contracting.
Absolutely.
There are more people in it. There are more birth photographers. There are more doulas in the hospital. There are more midwives and OBs working together, and more OBs referring to both of our offices. So, this is, widening. I'm seeing more pictures on Instagram of blessing ways and of all of this honoring of the sacred space, which I think is the pendulum swinging back to the feminine, to the yin, to this, okay, wow, we have been really like forcing a lot of things. Now we need to reset and surrender and allow. For the people that are in Wichita, how do they find you if they want to, and she's a doula as well. So,
Absolutely.
and it's not like you say, I'm locked into this hospital birth. I'm locked into a home birth. You can have a discussion and you're just there to be an advocate.
Right.
So guys, if it's like you've got 9 months, you've got time to work with. So if you're in Wichita and you want to have this conversation, how do people find you?
The easiest way to find me is on my website, which is youngbeginnings.com. And I have a Facebook page, also Young Beginnings. You can email me at babyme@youngbeginnings.com.
And I'll make sure this is in the show notes so you guys have that. And if they're not in Wichita, they can still email you, I'm guessing, because she's one of my open-hearted warrior women who says, like, if I can serve you in any way, she means it. And then if maybe they're wanting more information about home birth, about empowered birth, do you have any favorite books or resources?
I love to refer to Ina May Gaskin. She's just kind of the grandma of midwifery. And, way back in the 70s, she just went into an area that had not been traveled and had her women, and she writes some incredible books. So I think both of her books are definitely worth the read.
We'll tag that one, and then Well-Adjusted Babies is one of my favorite with supports. And any closing thoughts or any little? I'm going to challenge her one more time before we sign off. We've talked all about the women. Talk to the dads. What do you wish more men knew? I love, I do free consultations, so let me just put that out there. So oftentimes I have people come to my office and they just kind of want to know, like maybe a friend had a home birth or had a midwife or a doula, and they just want to know more. And they're like, but my husband, he is. And so men have a lot of questions. They're very different questions, very logical questions. Like, well, this is I'm going to have to burn my bed, after the baby comes. And yeah. But afterwards, they're always the biggest proponents because they have a spot. They have a place in that birth. They're able to support their wife throughout the entire thing. We give them direction. If they look at us like, I don't know what to do next, we say, hey, maybe hold her this way or rub her back this way. Or we allow alone time, with couples to just be bond
alone and labor together. And so,
Men have instincts too.
They do.
What a thought. They have feminine energy in them too.
They do.
So if empowered women means empowered men,
Right.
which means empowered children, which means empowered families.
And so much respect. Men usually say,
Yes.
wow, honey, I didn't know you were that strong. I had no idea you were that strong.
Yeah. And for a woman to be held
Right.
through those, and cheered on and championed by her partner, don't you think that strengthens marriages?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
More to come, guys. Miss Ginger Young, you see why I had to have her here. And pregnancy, prenatal, preconception, really, and then labor, birth, postpartum. These are going to be topics that we get into because this is how we create the change that I know humanity is yearning for. And it's how we move and grow beyond the time we're living in. So Thank you for joining us. I'm going to connect you to her. If you have any questions, let us know. And if you have somebody that you could share this with, send it forward and we're in this thing together. So we love you. Mwah. We'll see you soon.
Well, women, ladies, do you feel more empowered? Because, every time I talk about pregnancy and birth, I just fall more and more in love with the gift of being a woman and being a mother and championing in every single way that I can women everywhere. Because I do believe looking at the way we do birth in our culture and supporting more options and conversations for women and families that want something different, that maybe want to go back to the basics and slow things down and do it a different way. I do think that looking at the conversations that we have with women and men are so important. They're so important. Just imagine, regardless of the setting of where a woman chooses to birth, regardless of the external circumstances, imagine a woman more celebrated, honored, respected, and empowered along that journey. On the front side, during the birthing process, and postpartum. Imagine how that impacts every home. Imagine supporting men and asking them what they think and how they're feeling and what they need to better support their partner. Imagine how that changes the home. Imagine the children that we begin to bring into the world when we empower women, where we pay reverence to that sacred space in the moment of life when you're literally growing a human inside your body. Roman, Jagger, Knox, Magnolia, Phoenix. The gift of being your mother. The gift of reflecting back at what my body did. The beautiful bond between me and God. To be chosen as the vessel to bring you into the world. By far the coolest and most amazing honor of my life. And maybe that's it. You know, you were made to do this. You can do this. You will do this. Maybe these conversations help me heal some of my own regrets or shames that I carried around my own birth stories. Or maybe I needed to sit back and reflect over how amazing the human body is. I love, 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 love being a chiropractor and getting to support women when they're pregnant. And this conversation got me so fired up to do better and be better for all of you. You're magnificent. And maybe my favorite part of this conversation was where we did talk about the dads, to the partners that are beside these warrior women. It's conversations like this. I am certain in every fiber of my being, it is conversations like this, it is change like this that will turn the page to the world, the vibrant and alive and hope, love, and light-filled world that I know is possible, that I dream of. So thank you, Ginger. And thank you to all of you who tuned in to join this conversation as well. Share your comments. Share this with a friend. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll see you soon. Mwah.